All right, guys, Diablo Immortal development update. Here we go. Remember, guys, I am the Immortal in Diablo Immortal. Since Diablo Immortal's alpha testing began, tens and thousands of players have been able to come together in Westmarch. Our dream is to bring an authentic Diablo experience to as many players as possible. The setting, characters, and loot-defining elements of the Diablo experience are fondly remembered by so many of us here, and that's an experience we want to share with you. Let me make sure I'm not dying. I'm in the middle of a rift. Let me, I don't want any funny business to happen here. Let me quickly at least port to town while we do this 126 real quick. Let me kill this elite and back up and go to town, because I don't want to die. Get away from me, monsters. Okay. You don't want to die on my strongest character. All right, back to Diablo Immortal. Our community has been a key collaborator in helping us mold the vision we have for this title. Through observations across community channels, based on our tests with many global participants, and seeking input from our most active players, we've been working toward several improvements for Diablo Immortal. Follow feedback provided by test participants of the closed alpha, our team has been tuning core and endgame features. For example, we're iterating on PvP content like the Cycle of Strife to make it more accessible, alongside late-game PvE content like the Heliquary to make it more engaging. So for reference here, for those who don't know, the Cycle of Strife is the battle between the Immortals and the Shadows. And the Heliquary is the individual boss battles that you have against the super bosses to unlock the artifacts, which give you bonuses and challenge rifts and increase your offense and defensive rating. If none of that made any sense to you, that's okay. But I wrote actually a 10,000 word 19-page document to Blizzard about all this stuff on how to change it. So I'm actually super excited to see what we're going to see here. We're also working to provide controller support for those who want to play our game in a different way. Thank God. However, these changes and additional opportunities to improve our gameplay experience will not be released in the 2021 timeframe we had previously communicated. So the game is now planned for release in the first half of 2022, which will allow us to add substantial improvements to the whole game. So I'm not mad about that. I'm never mad about them taking additional time to make the game better. They say they need sounds like it was going to release at the end of 2021. They're going to add 6 months to the development, but they're going to give you controller support. I think that's a huge win, right? I think that's a huge win. Fine. Make the game better. Take your time. Add controller support. That's much better for me. I'm fine with that. We want to take this opportunity to highlight some of the game's systems we're focusing on in this quest to make Diablo Immortal more polished. These changes will be implemented in the future as we plan for our next beta testing milestone. Please note that Diablo Immortal is still in development. Game content described below is not final and it's subject to change. PvE. We saw players yearned for more long-term PvE goals and activities that enriched the social experience of Diablo Immortal. So we'll be adding new PvE-centric raids in the Heliquary system. Heliquary bosses are now designed as a challenge for raids of 8 players to overcome. Okay, let me finish reading and then we can talk about it. I know these game systems front and back by heart. We're writing guides. We're writing in-depth guides on how all of these work on the Maxroll team. So I can intelligently comment on these things when we get done reading. Additionally, we heard players wanted more meaningful interaction with bounties. So we'll be making adjustments that make the bounty system more engaging and fruitful for players who actively accomplish these challenges. For example, whenever you accept 4 bounties, they will all be for the same zone. Okay, let's think about that. We'll think about that in a minute. Many players shared concerns that they didn't find reward in pushing the higher challenge rifts. That's absolutely true. So challenge rifts will now reward new upgrade materials that can't be obtained any other way. That's a good change. Now, those with the gear skill and zeal to face obstacles head-on will be the most rewarded. So that's a good change. Challenge rifts has other problems as well, other critical problems. All right, so the Heliquary bosses are now designed as a challenge for raids of up to 8 players to overcome. So let me tell you something about the Heliquary. When the Heliquary was released and they had these super bosses out, the first one was Lassel the Flamespun. And at the time, myself, Rob, Lee, Lexi, EchoHack, we were the strongest people, at least on North America, and we were attempting this boss. Now, I was playing Demon Hunter, and Demon Hunter is like the best boss killer, so I had an advantage. So it took me like 5 attempts, and nothing in the game took me 5 attempts. I killed everything up to that point instantly. But when I fought Lassel, it took me 5 tries to kill him. I had to learn his abilities. I had to learn his ultimate attack. It kept one-shotting me. I finally learned how to get around it. Then I was met with some horrifying news. I was making a huge mistake. The difficulty of the bosses does not scale up with the more people that you add. So, like, I killed Lassel and I talked to like Rob or somebody. I talked to Rob or Lee or whoever it was. And they go, yeah, let's try to fight Lassel together. And we murdered him instantly. And then we got 4 people and we just killed him instantly. And I was like, oh, it doesn't scale with the more people that are actually in the party. We should have just brought 4 and instantly killed him. Now I was feeling all good about myself, getting like the world first solo Lassel kill, but I was just being stupid. I should have just invited my friends. So now they're changing it so they're now a challenge for raids of up to 8 players. Really, Heliquary bosses were just kind of already hidden to be already designed for a full party. We just had no idea that that was true. But now you can bring 8 people, and so that's cool. I hope that they make them harder. One thing that is absolutely a thing in Diablo Immortal already, one thing that was already currently in the game is I could fight Lassel with 3 people that were like total noobs. They had nothing. They couldn't even survive 1 second against Lassel, and I could just kill him instantly for them. I got so strong that I could just one-shot the boss for them. So Heliquary bosses are now designed as a challenge for raids of 8 players. I wonder if that mechanic is still going to be in the game. I wonder if really powerful people are going to be able to just carry people, 7 people through the boss, because it gives you a permanent power increase, an extremely meaningful increase if you can kill the boss. So I'm wondering if they're going to do anything to combat that, but to me, this actually isn't a huge change because it already kind of secretly was a boss designed for you to fight with 4 people. They just increased that to 8. So that's my opinion on the Heliquary bosses. We heard players wanting more meaningful interaction with bounties. In my opinion and in my feedback, I thought out of the tens, the dozens and dozens and dozens of game modes that Immortal has, I actually thought bounties were one of the very best. It didn't take that long to complete them. The auto navigation took you to wherever you needed to go pretty quickly. I did have some feedback on bounties. We won't get into it, but I had feedback on bounties, but actually the fact that bounties give you scoria, and scoria converts into offense and defensive rating for how fast you could complete it, I actually thought bounties were one of the very best game modes that they had in the game. In Diablo 3, I hate doing bounties. It's not worth it hardly ever. Immortal is the total opposite. The thing that I would never skip in a day is playing my bounties. So now when you accept 4 bounties, they'll all be for the same zone. There were some shenanigans that you could do, which I used religiously, to manipulate the bounty system. And part of it had to do with the way that dungeon bounties would spawn and some tricks you could do. So them now being in all the same zone, I'm going to have to think about if there's ways to manipulate around this. For example, in general, the most rewarding bounties are the dungeon bounties, but they also take the longest. And if you don't get a bounty, for a dungeon that rewards a high amount of XP per hour and materials per hour, it's usually a good idea to not pick it. So if you have 4 bounties and one of them is probably going to be a dungeon in that zone, what happens if you take the other 3 bounties, complete them, and then hit the refresh button? That's the kind of shenanigans that I want to mess around with. I'm not sure that this is an improvement. I guess it's an improvement in the sense that you don't have to menu. You don't have to go to other zones. But I guess to me, that wasn't my biggest gripe with bounties. But bounties were already in a good spot. So I guess what this is telling me is they're even looking at the game modes that are working well. They're leaving no stone unturned. But this wouldn't have been the highest priority change for me, if I'm being honest. Any players share concerns that they didn't find rewards in pushing higher challenge rifts? So that's true. Pushing higher challenge rifts was really not that rewarding. The only reward for doing higher challenge rifts was either getting a server first in a multiple of 10, which only one person gets that out of thousands. Sometimes I got it. Sometimes Echo got it. Sometimes Hippo got it. But the main problem with challenge rifts, which I know Blizzard is aware of, and I hope that they're taking a look at, is challenge rifts have very, very little to do with skill. Those with gear and skill, you can only skill your way through like 1 or 2 challenge rifts. And Rob has the math on it. Rob has the offensive and defensive rating charts for the offensive and defensive rating of the monsters versus what your rating is. And you can only clear a challenge rift like 150 points beyond your own offensive and defensive rating. So my main problem with challenge rifts is, let's say I play my Demon Hunter for 2 months and my Demon Hunter is a total powerhouse. It's like a super strong Demon Hunter. Let's say the highest challenge rift I've done is challenge rift 90. If I handed my phone to someone who has never played Immortal, never played it, I gave them a 2-minute explanation of what to do. Walk like this, multi-shot like this, drop your sentries here, yada, yada, yada. They would easily be able to do challenge rift, let's say 87. No problem. They would murder it with no experience. So what I'm saying is if my PB is 90, I could hand my phone to someone who has no idea what they're doing, and they could probably do an 87 with no problem. So the formula in the way that it calculates damage, and it doesn't really lend any room for skill to push you higher. The only way to do better in challenge rifts is just to get better gear. That's it. You get better gear, you annihilate challenge rift 91, or you can try it for 30 straight hours and maybe luckily clear it with 1 second left. Or you could farm for 2 hours doing Mad King, and then you can clear it in 5 minutes, you know? So that's my biggest gripe with challenge rifts. But the rewards were also a problem, and they fixed that. Okay, PvP. Next subject. The closed alpha introduced the Battleground, a place where heroes could test their mettle. There's a lot of promise with the Battleground system, but we believe more can be done to make this experience more enjoyable. We'll evaluate matchmaking, earning ranks, class balance, time to kill, and other defining elements to improve the Battlegrounds in Diablo Immortal. These things right here, this is these are exactly the problems. Matchmaking is a problem. I should just pull up my 19-page paper, but I can just tell you what I said. In matchmaking, it's not fair. Like, sometimes you queue up for 8v8, and it's me, Lee, Lexi, Rob, Dread Scythe, Echo Hack, Hippo, Mr. K against 8 babies. Like, the eight strongest people in Diablo Immortal versus the babies. When that happened, we just stopped playing. We'd literally just sit there and let the other team just kick our ass and let them win because it's so unfair. So having a matchmaking system that balances offensive rating and maybe having ranks and making it even will be huge. I mean, there's so many queues were so unfair. Class balance is a big issue. There's one huge outlier. It's Crusaders. Crusaders need to be crucified in PvP. Barbarians need to have one skill changed. They need to have Undying Rage nerfed. Just that one skill. That's it. Every other class was okay. At least it was something close. I would say, in my opinion, Demon Hunters were the worst PvP class. Monks could do some cool things. Wizards were okay if they could land Black Hole on you. Crusaders need to be crucified. And Barbarians need to have Undying Rage nerfed. That would be already a huge step in the right direction. Time to kill, everyone dies way too fast. Need to be alive longer to even play your guy. Another element. So these are the right things for those reasons. Those are the problems. Those are the problems with PvP. We need a matchmaking system, and Crusaders need to have their defense, their damage, their utility, their AoE. Everything needs to be nerfed 99%. Additionally, the cycle of strife was first introduced in the closed alpha. This endgame faction-based PvP is where players who pledge allegiance to the Shadows clash with the Immortals of Sanctuary. From forming a Dark House to rallying a PvPvE raid, the cycle of strife has been rampant with rivalries and faction pride. We'll continue optimizing this feature so more players feel worthy for the quest of the Eternal Crown. The biggest problem with this, if they came to me and they said, Blizzard came to me and said, Ryan, what is the biggest problem with the Shadows and the Immortals? The biggest problem that I would solve is it's better to be an adventurer, the shitty faction that is not even participating in any of this stuff, than the other ones. It's currently better to be an adventurer because adventurers get more scoria. More scoria is just more offensive rating, and that's the only stat that matters in the game. So adventurers need to be the worst faction to be by far. If you're playing Diablo Immortal and you choose to not participate in the huge faction war, if you choose to sit out, you need to have a penalty. You need to suck more than if you're a Shadow or an Immortal. Separately from that, yeah, I was the Immortal. I was the Immortal in Diablo Immortal for North America. And I got the best piece of gear from the vault that was ever released. And I had the most powerful buff of anyone in the game. And I still felt like being the Immortal didn't matter too much. Being literally the Immortal or being a part of the Immortals didn't feel as grand as I thought it could be. So, adventurers need to suck. If you sit out of the huge thing in the game, you have to suck. I'm sorry. You suck. And you don't get anything. And don't give them scoria. That's the best thing. And I would like to see the Immortals buffed so you are dying. You're salivating to be an Immortal and to keep it. I don't mean to say all this to say it hasn't done a great job. They have done a great job. I played hundreds and hundreds of hours testing this stuff. I no-lifed it for a long time. It is in a good state, but there are obviously, like with everything, there's things they could do to make it better. All right, controller support. Your enthusiasm for wanting to play Diablo Immortal with the controller is coming. But we're still working through the challenges of adapting the touchscreen controls to a controller seamlessly. Making our game more accessible is top of mind. We'll share more progress on this front as we approach the beta in the future. So I had a chance to talk with some of the Blizzard devs about actually the intricacies of how hard it is to make a controller work. And it is actually, if you actually sit down and talk with them about some of the challenges that they have, it's actually really hard. If I was a dev at Blizzard and they approached me with those problems, here are the problems that we have, solve them, I'd be like, all right, put in my 2 weeks, I'll just go be a fry cook at McDonald's. I think this is above my pay grade. So I can really sympathize with how difficult this is. If they can actually find a seamless way to get this to work, I'm going to be very impressed. And I hope it happens. Character progression. In general, on the gear front, we're evaluating more ways to make top-tier gear and legendary gear exciting and sought after, especially for players who've surpassed max level on their characters. After hitting the level cap, Paragon levels increase your character's power. In Diablo Immortal, we want this endgame progression to be worthwhile, offering unique bonuses in the form of stat boosts and special perks. However, having a higher Paragon should also reap better rewards. We're implementing a system that enables players with higher Paragon levels or players taking on higher difficulties to receive more powerful items. Okay. Furthermore, Closed Alpha introduced a system to discourage playing the game for a potentially unhealthy number of hours with a weekly XP cap. We learned a lot from this system and are making some improvements to make the system less harsh on those who reach the cap and more generous to those trying to catch up. Firstly, we're introducing bonus XP gain for players who play less often. Secondly, we're replacing the weekly XP cap with a global cap that increases over time. This allows players more flexibility with their play time while also allowing latecomers to a server a viable path to catch up. Becoming more powerful by both skills and gear is a hallmark of a Diablo legacy, and we want these mechanics in Diablo Immortal to be no exception. Okay, so this is about learning more. Let's think about this stuff here. So let me read this again. Top tier gear and legendary gear exciting and sought after, especially for players who've surpassed the max level. After hitting the level cap, Paragon levels increase your character's power. In Diablo Immortal, we want this endgame to be worthwhile, offering unique bonuses in the form of stat boosts and special perks. However, having a higher Paragon level should reap better rewards. We're implementing a system that enables players with higher Paragon levels or players taking on higher difficulties to receive more powerful items. Okay, so let me just explain how the current state of the game is, or was in the alpha. Here's how it was. You need to find every legendary in the game so you can extract its power similar to Kanai's cube, and then you have all the legendary powers that you want. This is not a difficult task. You can find the legendaries pretty easily. It's not challenging to do this. So the thing that you're after, everything in Diablo Immortal, we have a saying in Diablo 3. The answer is greater Riffs. No matter what you're doing, the answer is greater Riffs. You should be doing greater Riffs if you want more power, if you want more gem ups, if you want more augments, if you want more gear, if you want more experience, if you want more Paragon levels. Everything, the answer is greater Riffs. In Diablo Immortal, the answer is offensive and defensive rating. You can literally be blind to every other stat in the current iteration of the game. You can literally ignore it. You can ignore your health. You could ignore your defense. You could ignore your gems. You could ignore your armor pen. Forget it. Forget all of it. It's all about your offensive and defensive rating. Nothing else matters. Okay, so what you do now is you find all legendary powers and then you extract them. That's not difficult. Now you equip legendary gear, and you pretty much just equip legendary gear that has the most stats on it. Every stat point is 1 point of offensive and defensive rating. So a chest with 70 stats is worse than a chest with 90 stats. Now, there is extremely, super extremely rare gear, top tier gear, which is called a triple stat legendary, where it has 3 rows of stats. Instead of rolling between like 70 stats and 100 stats, a triple stat legendary could have like up to 150 or like 200 or 300. This gear was insanely rare. 99.9% of players didn't even have a piece of it. And I'm not sure that anybody is even exactly sure where exactly it drops. But Rob and I have hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I had one that I got from the Immortal Vault. And Rob either had 1 or 0 on his wizard, I'm pretty sure. I'll have to ask Rob. But out of his whole character, he had like, let's just say he had 1 and I had 1. There's like no way to find it. And Magic Find, we tested it. Magic Find and at the higher difficulties never seemed to produce these triple stat legendaries. And Lexi had 1. So so now let's talk about Paragon levels. Paragon levels, Rob and I were the highest Paragon by far. Rob and I were 150 when I think second place in the world was Echo Hack at like 105. And those 45 levels are a ton of time invested. So, and I can tell you something. Our higher Paragon level really didn't matter at all. It just didn't matter. All that time we put in, it didn't give us an advantage. It should never be like D3, right? It shouldn't be, oh, you're the highest Paragon, you're just the strongest, you just destroy everybody. But you'd have to ask Rob how he felt, but it did feel bad. You put in all that effort, and a Paragon 70 player, if they found 1 extra triple stat legendary than we did, all other things being held equal, was just as strong as us. So the concept of higher Paragon being more rewarding is a breath of fresh air. And higher Paragon levels, getting better loot on higher difficulties to receive more powerful items sounds really good. I want the higher difficulties to be more rewarding. I want there to be some better bonus for being a higher Paragon level. And if maybe it has a higher chance to find a triple stat legendary, great. That's a step in the right direction. That's some background there on what that means to me when I read this paragraph. The XP cap was a huge point of contention from every angle you could possibly imagine it being contended from. A lot of people. So, okay. Part of the reason that Rob and I were ahead of everybody, besides playing like insane hours, was we made 3 characters. That means we took a character from level 1. As far as we know, there's no power leveling. We leveled all the way through the game, all the way to 55. And that gave us 3 weekly XP cap bars. The weekly XP cap is not account-wide. It's not global. It applies to your character. And Paragon level is shared between your characters. So Rob and I were capping 3 characters per week, while every other player in the world was like, F that. The super tryhards made a second character. but 2 characters is not 3, right? So the feedback that I gave Blizzard is I never for 1 second ever wanted to play a different class than my Demon Hunter. I only wanted to play my Demon Hunter. But I didn't want to slow down my XP because we were trying to reach Paragon 150 because we wanted to see the brand new tree, the 150 tree. This would have been almost impossible to do without making extra characters. So the huge problem with the XP cap, the gut-wrenching part of it, is when you hit the XP cap, you can no longer pick up yellows and blues. When you can't pick up levels and blues, you can't upgrade your items, which means, in simple plain English, no more offensive and defensive rating, which is a devastating, bone-crushing, soul-crushing penalty. When you hit the weekly XP cap, pretty much metaphorically, you're not going to get any stronger anymore. Not because you can't get XP, but because you can't get more offensive and defensive rating. This led to actually some really bad social problems for Diablo Immortal. So what people would do is everyone figured out very quickly, the strongest players, that the only thing that mattered was your offensive and defensive rating and not your Paragon level. So you needed to find a way to find the most items while actually getting the least amount of XP. And part of that is you get a bonus for playing in groups. And so what people would do is they would solo farm dungeons and try to minimize their amount of XP and maximize their amount of items. This is like completely contradictory to trying to make a game where you want to play with your friends. Oh, I can't play with my friends because we get the same items in solo and group, practically. But if I play with my friends, I get more XP. I hit the XP cap, and then I can't get any stronger. There was another point of contention with it where, because there was a weekly XP cap, Rob, Lee, and I, we erupted in the beginning. We cleared the game in whatever it was, 15 hours, and we just started blasting. So anybody who was even a day behind or missed 1 weekly XP cap, even the players who did that, they were never going to catch us. Never. And then we made 3 characters. And the only way you're going to beat us is if you make 4. No one's going to do that. That's literal insanity. So there was a problem where the people who were behind couldn't catch us. They were never going to catch us. Little did they know catching us was not worth it because Paragon levels didn't matter really. So let's see what they're doing here. They're introducing bonus XP gain for players who play less often. I'm okay with this. This is a way for you guys to catch up. If you don't have that much time to play, you got a family, they're going to make, you have a job, you got a dog you got to walk, you got baskets that you have to weave, you're going to get more XP if you don't have as much time to play. I'm good with that. And secondly, they're replacing the weekly XP cap with a global cap that increases over time. It's very hard for me to I just don't know what this means. I just don't know what it means. So I can't comment on that. I don't know what that means. So I'm not even going to attempt to speak on this until I know what it means. I don't know, does that mean like in the first week you can only reach Paragon 100 and then it stops? And then week 2 it allows you to get to 150? How does this affect the material drops? I'm guessing it means, yeah, there's a maximum XP that you can reach each week or month or whatever they choose to put it at. I would be good with that. You hit that and then you're good, but I don't want to hit that and then I can't power up my character anymore. If that's a thing, if when you hit Paragon 100 for the first month and you can't go higher, if I don't get my yellows and blues anymore, I will I guess I would just stop playing until the next month is out. So that has to be addressed in some way. You can't stop character progression when you get that cap. So we'll see how they implement it. I'm sure it will be better. But yeah, there were some really bad things about this weekly XP cap. This allows players more flexibility with their playtime while also allowing latecomers to a server a viable path to catch up. So it sounds, I'll need to see it and try it, but it sounds like a much better system. It sounds like a much better system. Let's see the details on it later. Becoming more powerful by both skills and gear is a hallmark of the Diablo legacy. So overall, I mean, it sounds like they're doing a tremendous job over there. Helliquary bosses already being raids. To me, they already were raids just for 4 people. The bounties, I already thought the bounties was one of the absolute best game modes. The best. So I have a feeling this change is not going to make too much of a difference, to be honest. But it's already a great game mode. Challenges need to be fixed. They're fixing some things here. I'm interested to see how the offensive and defensive rating formula changes so we can get more skill involved in the challenge rifts. I would love that. PvP, these things that they wrote, these are the problems. Those are the problems right there, the big ones. So that's very good to see them that's what they're addressing. Cycle of Strife, they're making changes to it. Don't really know what that means, but remember, adventurers must suck. If you don't participate, I'm sorry, you get no benefit. You need to be forced to suck. Controller support is coming. That's great. Character progression is a huge important thing. So a lot of these things, yeah, finding the triple stat legendaries is like impossible right now. I like that. I like that it's very rare. I don't want it to be easy, but I don't know how I would. No one knows how to go about doing it other than getting lucky from the vault. So it looks like this new system where you can actually plan for it and have a way to do it. I will like that much better. The weekly XP cap, the way it was implemented, we hated it. Rob and I hated ourselves for making 3 characters and blasting them. With what I think this sounds like, the global cap that everybody can reach and the benefit to the new players, it sounds really good. So overall, I'm very impressed. I think this game is going to be a lot better than a lot of people think it is. So I hope everybody gives it a try and I guess lets me know what they think about it. But once this comes out for beta, you absolutely will believe me, Rob, Lexi, Dread, Lee, Echo, all the people will be blasting again, and we're gonna test and see what they've changed, and we will be able to sense the differences immediately.